All of the 2023 We the People bikes are on a crazy sale right now, 30% off and more. And you're probably wondering if some of these bikes are any good. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to offer a quick overview of every single bike and give you the quick rundown on whether or not this bike is worth it, especially at the sale price. If you want to shop all of these bikes on 30% discount, click the link up here on the screen or in the description. Let's get right into it. The lowest quality bike on the list is going to be the 2023 WeThePeople Nova. Now the Nova is normally $479 on sale for $335. This is an entry-level BMX bike built for brand new riders who want a bike with pro-level quality and low cost so that they can get into the sport and they can start riding. I really admire the fact that this bike is built for new riders and it comes at such a low price point. But when we look at the quality for $479, this bike is a little bit overpriced. But now with a new lens of a $335 price tag, let's talk about the Nova. The WeThePeople Nova weighs 26.2 pounds. It's actually a fairly light bike. Everything on the bike is fully upgradable and fully customizable. Like I said, it costs almost $500 at full MSRP. The Nova does come with a standard set of U-brakes and it doesn't come with any pegs or any hub guards. One of the cool things about the Nova is the varying sizes and color option. You've got a 20-inch matte black colorway, you've got a 20-inch laser green colorway, then you've also got a 20-inch ultraviolet color, and then a 20.5-inch matte black. So the 20.00 inch top tube is best for riders who are between, 4'10" and 5'3". It's for small riders who need a small, compact bike so that they can maneuver it. If a small rider gets on a 21-inch bike or a 20.75 inch bike, they're going to have a hard time controlling it. And alternatively, if a tall rider gets on a 20.00 inch top tube, the bike is going to be way too responsive to maneuver. Before we look at the quality, let's talk a little bit about the geometries of the bike. The Nova has a 12.75 inch chainstay length, a 75-degree head tube angle, a 11.75 inch bottom bracket height, and an 8.38 standover height. So the standover height is this right here, and that's 8.3 inches. This is smaller than normal, and the reason for that is because it's designed for smaller riders. Most modern BMX bikes have about a 9-inch standover height, and this 8.3 standover height is quite a bit smaller to compensate for smaller riders who have smaller legs. But other than that, the geometry on this bike is pretty average, pretty normal. Nothing crazy stands out here. Now let's look at the quality, the most important part. This high-tensile steel frame. High-tensile steel is quite a bit weaker than full chromoly, and it's not going to last as long. It tends to bend, it tends to break when you do big drops and big maneuvers. It also has high-tensile steel forks with a chromoly steer tube, meaning the tube that runs up here through the frame is going to be full chromoly while the legs are high-tensile steel. What tends to happen with the high-tensile steel legs is that the fork legs bend in, and you look like you're riding a really steep, responsive bike, and it just looks ridiculous. So you got to be careful with that. It's also got high tensile steel handlebars and single wall rims. Because of this quality, it's not a super high quality bike, and I wouldn't recommend it for riders who weigh over 150 pounds. If you weigh over 150 pounds, chances are you're going to bend most of the high tensile steel parts on this bike, and that's not going to be very fun. One really cool thing about the bike is the looks. If we look at this WeThePeople Nova bike and just looking at it, it's a beautiful bike, well put together, well designed. They're nice looking bikes, I'm not going to lie. But when it comes down to the quality, the reality is that it's not a very high quality bike. So if you're a brand new rider considering the WeThePeople Nova and you weigh under 150 pounds, this price is absolutely insane, and I 100% recommend it. If you weigh over 150 pounds or you're a little bit more advanced, I'd stay away from the Nova because I think you need something quite a bit better quality. And if you can't find the Nova for this sale price right here, and you can only find it for $479, I think it's overpriced, and I think you'd be much better off buying a different brand BMX bike for the same price with much better quality. If you want to know what bike that is, click the link up here and request a free bike recommendation. I'll find you 3 bikes that are absolutely perfect for you, and then I'll send them to you so you don't even have to look for the bikes. You're like, wow, here are 3 bikes that are perfect for me. I'll just pick which one I want to buy. It's going to make your life a lot easier. But let's talk about the next BMX bike in WeThePeople's lineup. Okay, next on the list is the WeThePeople CRS. Now the CRS is not the same as the WeThePeople Crysis. The Crysis is a little bit higher quality, and the CRS is a step above the Nova. So it's important to know that the CRS comes in a cassette version, and it also comes with a freecoaster version. The freecoaster version is a little bit more expensive than the cassette version, and that's traditional for most BMX bikes. So in this little section here, we're going to talk about the CRS and the freecoaster version. And so I'll just start it off in the intro. If you want a freecoaster, you don't have to pedal backwards. That's the benefit of freecoasters. You can fakie. You don't have to pedal backwards. On a cassette, you do have to pedal backwards. Cassettes have more pedal pressure, freecoasters don't have much pedal pressure, and that's really the gist of it. And so I recommend, if you're brand new to the sport, start out on a cassette and buy a freecoaster wheel that you can replace out and ride from time to time, because freecoasters for most people are hard to get used to, especially if you used to ride BMX and you're just getting back into it. Okay, with all that aside, let's talk about some important things about the CRS. The CRS weighs 26.7 pounds. This is actually pretty light in all things considered. It's going to cost $554 for the freecoaster version and $529 for the cassette version. As you can see on the screen here, both of these bikes are 30% off. So the freecoaster version is $388 and the cassette version is $370. It's a really good deal. So as you can see by the picture, this bike does have a standard U-brake, which means that you're able to stop this bike, and it does have holes drilled for gyros. You can put a gyro on here if you wanted. You can also take off the brakes if you want to ride brakeless. That's totally fine. Everything on the bike is customizable and fully upgradable, so you can replace parts and upgrade parts as you see fit. The cassette version comes in a galactic purple colorway, and it comes in a black colorway, while the freecoaster version comes in a berry blast colorway and a matte black colorway. So you've got 4 different color options there, 2 for each, depending on if you go with cassette or if you go with freecoaster. The galactic purple and the berry blast are only available in their specific hub types. You can't get the berry blast in a cassette. You can't get the galactic purple in a freecoaster. That's just how it works, okay? Now, let's talk about those sizing of the bike. So we talked about the colors. Each bike is available in a 20.25 inch top tube option. That's the only option you get. And the 20.25 inch top tube is best for riders who are between 5'3" and 5'6". If you're way taller than that, you're going to want to look for a taller bike, because this bike is going to feel way too crazy to maneuver. Okay, so let's talk about the quality. Why is this bike more expensive than the WeThePeople Nova? Well, it really comes down to the quality of the bike. Now, at the end of this section, I'm going to give you the honest truth of the bike and tell you whether or not I recommend it. If you want this bike, you're going to get a full chromoly down tube, and that's it. That means that this piece of tubing right here is going to be full chromoly, while the head tube, the top tube, the standover height, or the seat tube, and the chainstay, the back triangle, are all going to be high tensile steel. And like I mentioned earlier about the Nova, high tensile steel is bad. It's not really bad for beginner riders, but for riders who are doing tricks and putting the bike through abuse, it's important to get full chromoly if you can. And that chromoly down tube will keep the frame from crumbling, but everything else is high tensile steel. So anyway, we'll just leave it at that. The forks are going to be high tensile steel with a chromoly steer tube, meaning that these legs right here are high tensile steel and they're subject to bending. Now the bars are also high tensile steel handlebars with an 8.85 inch rise. Personally, I think this rise is a little bit too tall for riders who are between 5'3" and 5'6", who would perfectly fit on this bike, but that's just more of a personal preference there. Before we talk about the quality, let's take a quick look at the rest of the geometry on this bike. The chainstay length is 12.75 inches. The bottom bracket height is 11.75. The standover height is 8.4 inches. And the head tube angle is 75 degrees. Okay, and so when we look at that, that means that this chainstay is a little bit shorter than average, making the wheelbase shorter and giving the bike a more responsive feel. The shorter standover height makes the seat lower for smaller riders who don't have really long legs. Overall, this is a good geometry, especially for riders who are between 5'3" and 5'6", following that recommended size. This bike would fit someone perfectly who's between those sizes. It's got single wall rims. They're salt fraction single wall rims. It doesn't have very high quality aftermarket parts. So basically this is a low quality bike, and it's going to be best for riders who weigh under 150 pounds, just like the Nova. If you weigh over 150 pounds, you're probably going to bend this bike, and it's just not going to be a good time. So with all that being said, do I recommend the WeThePeople CRS? The answer is yes. If you are a small rider, even at full price, if you are a small rider who needs a 20.25 inch top tube, this is one of the better quality BMX bikes that you can get. Most bikes that come in a 20.00 or a 20 inch top tube do not have any chromoly or any high quality aftermarket parts. This bike has at least a little chromoly and a few aftermarket parts, making it the best option for those smaller riders. Now, $530 is a really steep price tag, and there are better bikes for that price. But if you are tied to the 20.25 inch top tube, this is going to be the best option for you. And if it's available at $370, that's a crazy price. The bikes that are similar priced at $370 are not even close to this quality. So with that being said, I do fully recommend it, especially at the sale price. If you're a taller rider or you need something higher quality, stay tuned, because later we're going to talk about those higher end bikes that would fit you better and last a lot longer. Next on the list is the WeThePeople Arcade. The Arcade is a 1/4 of an inch taller than the WeThePeople CRS, and that makes it better for riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9". But is the quality worth it? Is this bike good enough quality that I would comfortably recommend it to somebody who has a decent amount of skills? That's what we're going to find out right now. The WeThePeople Arcade is currently on sale from $554 all the way down to $388. It's a crazy price, crazy deal, but is it right for you? The Arcade was one of my favorite bikes, mostly because of the camo tires. Okay, this color option I think is really sick. I think it looks cool, and it's pretty unique. You don't see this option in pretty much any complete bikes, and it just stands out. Okay, so I like it for that. Here are 5 things that you need to know about this bike. The first thing is how much it weighs, which is 27.7 pounds. This is pretty heavy compared to the Nova and compared to the CRS. Like I said, it's normally $554 on sale for $388. It's a good price. You can upgrade, you can customize everything on the WeThePeople Arcade. You can do that and make it look and ride however you want, which is very cool, because certain Walmart bikes you can't do that with. It does come with brakes, like you see here in the picture. These are brakes, they're removable, and it does have holes drilled for gyro tabs. This bike is available in a 20.5 inch top tube and a 21 inch top tube. The 20.5 inch option is available in this black and camo colorway and candy red, and the 21 inch option is only available in the candy red colorway. So the 20.5 inch top tube is going to be best for riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9", like I said already. The 21 inch option is best for riders who are over 6 foot. So it's important to know that, no matter what your height is, this bike has a high chance that you're going to fit on either the 20.5 or the 21 inch option, because if you're in between those heights, you can size up or size down and make it work. But I don't recommend getting the 21 inch option if you're a taller rider, because taller riders generally weigh a little bit more, and as you'll find out towards the end of this section, this bike does have a weight limit. And to determine why it has a weight limit, let's take a look at the quality. The frame is chromoly. It's got a full chromoly top tube and down tube, while the rest is high tensile steel. So this tube right here is chromoly, this tube right here is chromoly. That means about 50% of the bike is chromoly, which is nicer than the CRS only having a chromoly down tube. The fork is fully high tensile steel with a chromoly steer tube. The bars are also full high tensile steel, and the rims are single wall salt Valin single wall rims. These rims do have an extra thick sidewall, so they're a little bit more durable than most single wall rims, but it's nothing crazy. And so because of this quality, this bike does have a weight limit of about 150 pounds, just like the CRS, just like the Nova. If you weigh more than that, chances are you're going to bend it, chances are you're going to break it, and you're going to spend more money replacing these parts over time than if you would have just spent a little bit more and got a higher quality bike. So this bike does have a weight limit, but let's take a quick look at the geometry to understand how it's going to handle and how this bike is going to feel. It has a 12.75 inch chainstay length, an 11.75 inch bottom bracket height, a 75-degree head tube angle, and an 8.75 inch standover. Overall, this geometry is pretty average, average. The only thing I'd point out here is that chainstay is very short. And for a taller rider, this geometry, if you go with the 21-inch option, might be too responsive. But for someone who's on the 20.5-inch option, this geometry is going to set them up for success because the bike's going to be maneuverable and controllable. Ultimately, for riders who really like the way this We The People bike looks and who weigh under 150 pounds and fit comfortably on the 20.5-inch option, I recommend this bike. For taller riders who would have to go for the 21-inch option, I don't recommend it, even at this sale price, because the quality is just too low and chances are you're going to bend it or you're going to break it. I'd recommend looking at the WeThePeople Justice or something even higher quality like the WeThePeople Trust if you need a taller bike and you want something with better quality. We'll talk about those a little bit later. But for a smaller rider on this 20.5-inch option, even at this price, it's a little bit expensive, but it's a nice looking bike and it's got a premium feel. But at this sale price, you literally cannot beat it. You can't find a bike this good quality for this price. And so if you're considering it, and again, you're on a 20.5-inch bike, this is a solid option. But now let's talk about the next quality up. The WeThePeople Justice is an eye catcher for sure. The two different color options are very unique, the bright yellow and the ghost gray. They look awesome, they look good. Now, is the quality worth it though? And that's what we're going to talk about here. Now, if you look at the WeThePeople Justice on Dan's comp, it's going to cost you $614. That's a high price to pay for a bike that isn't necessarily full chromoly. But if you are able to grab it at the sale price of $430, you're getting an incredibly good deal. Let's talk about the quality of this bike, the geometry of this bike, and ultimately decide if this is a good choice for you. So let's talk about a few things that you're probably wondering. How much does the WeThePeople Justice weigh? It's going to weigh 25.75 pounds. Everything on the bike is fully upgradable and fully customizable. It's going to come equipped with brakes, although the brakes aren't shown here in the picture, but it does come with brakes. It has salt brakes, Eclatolin brakes, or salt brake lever, Eclatolin brakes, and everything is fully removable. If you look here, you don't see any hardware attached. It's fully upgradable, fully customizable, and the brakes are fully removable so that you can have a nice, clean, brakeless look. It's available in a 20.75-inch top tube in a ghost gray colorway and a taxi yellow colorway. So this is the ghost gray, and this is the taxi cab yellow. Matte taxi yellow to be specific. Okay, so now you know a little bit about the bike. Let's talk about who that sizing is right for. So like I said, it's only available in a 20.75-inch top tube, and this is going to be best for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot. It's designed for those riders who are kind of tall but not super tall, and you'll learn a little bit later why this bike is so responsive. So if we take a look at the other geometry, you're going to notice a 12.75-inch chainstay length, a 76-degree head tube angle, an 11.75-inch bottom bracket height, and a 9-inch standover. What's crazy to me here is the 76-degree head tube angle. There are hardly any bikes with a head tube angle that responsive. That's a whole degree steeper than average. Average is about 75. So you combine that 76-degree head tube angle with the 12.75-inch chainstay, and you've got a very short wheelbase, meaning the front wheel is very close to the back wheel, and this is going to give you a very responsive and a very snappy bike. Steering is going to be quick and easy. Nose manuals are going to be easy to pop into. Spins are going to be easy. This bike is very responsive and very snappy. But what about the quality? Okay, it's cool to have a snappy bike, but not if the quality is no good. So when we look at this bike, we see a full 4130 chromoly frame. Now don't think that that's chromoly, because all that means is the top tube, the head tube, and the down tube are full chromoly, while this back triangle here is high tensile steel. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. For a newer rider, having that chromoly up in the front does significantly strengthen the impact, or strengthen the bike. Makes the bike a lot stronger, but having this tri-moly or this high tensile steel back end means that when you're doing spins, the back end bends, and you can have an issue with that later. I've bent many rear triangles on high tensile steel bikes, and it's not a fun thing to look down at your bike and see it's all tweaked out like that. It's just not very fun when that happens. The fork is a full chromoly fork, doesn't have any high tensile steel in it, and the bars are full chromoly WeThePeople Justice bars with a 9-inch rise. So I like the fact that we got chromoly in the bars, chromoly in the forks, and mostly chromoly in the frame. The rims are double wall in the back and a single wall in the front. The Salt Vallon rim has an extra thick sidewall, so even though it's not the same quality as a double wall rim, having that in the front paired with an extra thick sidewall, it's going to mean it's going to last a fair amount of time. I've never bent a front rim, even if it's single wall. It doesn't happen very often, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, because of this quality, there is still a weight limit with this bike, but it's about 170 pounds. If you open up the Doug's to Bob app, you'll see that this bike is only recommended for riders who weigh under 170 pounds. If you weigh over that, in my opinion, the high tensile steel back end is going to bend when you're learning spins, and it's just going to be a bad experience. One really cool thing here is that this bike does come with 4 hub guards. So if you did want to ride street on this bike, you want to buy some pegs, you don't need to buy the hub guards because they already come equipped. And then it's also equipped with this sprocket with a bash guard, which makes this bike extra street ready. So you can just jump on the bike, throw on some pegs, and go out and ride your favorite street spots. All in all, even at full price, I do recommend this bike from time to time. This bike does show up on the free bike recommendation because for this geometry, park specificity, responsiveness, and color options, it's a solid choice, especially in the 20.75 inch top tube. But at $614, it's a little bit overpriced. Now at $430, it's unheard of. And again, just like every other We the People bike I've talked about so far, if you can find it at this sale price, and you want this bike, it's a good fit for you, jump on it right now because this is the best price and best value you're going to find in a very long time. But if you waited around, you missed out, and it's only available at $614, I'd stay away from it unless this is the absolute perfect bike and I recommended it to you on the recommendation. The We the People Reason is a pretty expensive bike. It's normally priced at $680. So we're going to talk about the We the People Reason. I'm going to help you decide if this bike is worth your money and if you should actually spend your money on it, okay? Now, right now, the We the People Reason is 30% off, making it $575, which is a crazy price and makes it a really good value. I'll talk about it at the end if this sale price makes things a little bit different. So let's get into it. Here are some things you need to know about the We the People Reason. The first thing you need to know is the weight. It's very important to know, and this bike weighs 27.2 pounds. Everything on the bike is upgradable and customizable. You can replace whatever parts you want with other parts. It doesn't show brakes in the picture, but it does come with brakes. The cool thing is everything's removable, so you can take the brakes off and have a nice, clean, brakeless look. When it comes to sizing, when it comes to colors, the We the People Reason is available in 2 different color options and 1 top tube size. It has a 20.75 inch top tube in a matte blue colorway and a 20.75 inch top tube in a black colorway with oil slick cranks. The 20.75 inch top tube is best for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot. It's really important to get a bike that's the right size for you so that you can properly maneuver the bike. It makes learning tricks easier. It makes the bike feel more comfortable. Follow this size guide and make sure you get a bike that's the right size for you. The Reason's one of those bikes that comes very responsive. Just like a lot of We the People bikes we've seen so far, they're responsive. The Reason has a 12.75 inch chainstay, a steep 76-degree head tube angle, an 11.75 inch bottom bracket height, and a 9-inch standover. Overall, the 12.75 inch chainstay brings the back wheel closer to the front wheel than normal. Average is about 13 inches, so this is a little bit more responsive than we're used to seeing. The 76-degree head tube angle means the head tube is tilted down and in an extra degree, which brings the front wheel a little bit closer to the back wheel and makes it even more responsive and snappy. Nose manuals are going to be easier, spins are going to be easier, steering is going to be really tight and responsive. This is a snappy bike, and you would enjoy it if you plan to do technical street riding or technical park riding. But can it even hold up to that kind of riding? Well, let's look at the quality and see if the Reason is capable of withstanding technical street or technical park riding. This bike has a full chromoly frame, meaning the top tube, the head tube, and the down tube are chromoly. It's going to come with full chromoly forks with a 15mm offset. That's a very responsive fork offset. It's going to bring that front wheel even closer to the back wheel and make this bike super quick to get into nose manuals. It's got full chromoly We the People Reason 4-piece handlebars, and it comes with salt double wall rim in the back and a single wall rim in the front. A single wall rim in the front isn't the end of the world, although it's important to know that if you're spending a ton of money on a bike, it should include a double wall rim in the front for this discounted price, and it's something you shouldn't really worry about that much because because honestly, the front wheel doesn't take a whole bunch of impact. Sometimes it does, but chances are you're not going to bend the front wheel even if it's single wall. So don't stress about it too much, but don't get a single wall rim on the front on a like $800-900 bike. That's ridiculous. But $500 bike, that's fine. We can live with that. All right. We can live with that for sure. Because of this quality, I'm not going to give this bike a weight limit. I'm going to say it has the full chromoly frame, forks, bars. I'm going to say everything on this bike is going to last for most riders. Now, if you're significantly heavier, like 250 pounds or more, you might want to consider spending extra money and getting a pro level BMX bike. The pro level quality is going to last while you're progressing and last as your body puts extra stress on the parts. I'm over 200 pounds myself, and I've broken a ton of different parts, and I just want to give you the heads up, and I want you to be prepared that that's a potential outcome. Your weight is going to bend and break parts, so be ready to upgrade it if you can't afford a pro level quality bike. One cool thing about this bike is how street specific it is. It's very similar to the WeThePeople Justice, although it's full chromoly and the Justice is not. It comes with 4 hub guards, 2 pegs, and a sprocket with a bash guard. The sprocket with the bash guard is going to protect the chain and protect the sprocket when you're doing sprocket stalls and things like that. This is a nice looking bike with a really close attention to detail. So even for $680, the WeThePeople Reason shows up from time to time on my free bike recommendations. I recommend it sometimes because this bike is a perfect fit for some riders. Now, when it comes down to $475, which I still can't wrap my head around, this might be one of the best bikes you can get for under $500. Honestly, I would say go with this bike over the WeThePeople Crysis and save some extra money because the quality here is pretty much the same. Full chromoly frame, full chromoly forks, full chromoly bars. The biggest difference is a single wall rim in the front versus the Crysis. We'll talk about the Crysis next. But anyway, it's like, I don't know. I think this would be a better option unless for some reason you need the 21 or the 20.5 that the Crysis comes in. But ultimately at this sale price, I recommend this bike. 30% off is a crazy deal. And don't forget the link to these bikes on the sale price is in the description. So head over if you can't find that. Okay, next on the list is the WeThePeople Crysis. And like I said earlier, the Crysis is not to be confused with the CRS. The Crysis is a pretty high quality bike, and currently it's on sale for $514, which is absolutely insane. This bike is normally $734, and honestly, I don't recommend it very often in the free bike recommendations, not because it's a bad bike, but mostly because for $734, you can find bikes that are the same quality for a lower price. And ultimately, I want you guys to get a good deal on your BMX bike. And so the Crysis has been out of the picture on mini bike recommendations. But for $514, we're going to talk about whether that price changes things and if I actually recommend it at the end of this section. But let's talk a little bit about some things that you need to know about the Crysis. It's going to weigh 26.32 pounds. It's available in a midnight green 21-inch option, a midnight green 20.5-inch option, and a matte black 21 and a matte black 20.5 option. So ultimately there are 4 different options on this bike, although one is 21 and one's 20.5. So the sizing is the biggest thing here. This bike does come with brakes, but everything's removable so you can have a nice clean brakeless look. And all the parts are fully upgradable and fully customizable. Some of these parts are really high quality and really good. Some of these parts are decent, but should be looked at upgrading soon. So I mentioned the 2 top tube sizes. The 21-inch top tube is going to be best for riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9". While the 21-inch option is going to be best for riders who are over 6 foot. If you're taller than 6 foot, getting the 21-inch option is going to give you a nice, reliable feeling BMX bike. So that's the top tube size. Let's talk a little bit more about the geometry of the bike so you can understand how it's going to handle and how it's going to feel. This bike has a 13.2-inch chainstay, a 75-degree head tube angle, 11.65 bottom bracket height, and an 8.75-inch standover height. For the most part, this bike is a little bit more trail orientated than the previous WeThePeople bikes we looked at. It has a little bit of a longer chainstay, and it also has a lower bottom bracket height that gives the bike some more stability. Having Having a stable bike when you're riding big dirt jumps is very important because you want to be able to handle the bike at high speeds. So we understand the sizing, we understand the geometry. Let's talk about the quality of the WeThePeople Crysis to see why this bike is priced at almost $800 at full MSRP. The frame is a full chromoly frame. It's got full chromoly 4130 forks. It's got full chromoly handlebars. And then it also has Salt Summit double wall rims. So when we look at just the baseline of the quality, those are the things that I look for in a mid-level bike. The Crysis hits the mark. This is actually a mid-level bike because of the full chromoly frame, full chromoly forks, and full chromoly handlebars. The double wall rims ensure that the bike's going to last when you start to learn spins, tail whips, or anything that causes impact on the rims. One thing I want to point out that's really cool about this bike and about the quality is that it has a front load stem. Most of the time on a complete bike, you're going to see a top load stem because the top load stem gives the handlebars some extra reach and some extra rise, and it makes it feel a little bit more snappy and responsive. And so the front load stem is going to do the opposite of that and give the bike more stability. This bike also comes equipped with 4 hub guards. So if you buy pegs, all you need to do is buy pegs. You don't have to buy the hub guards also. The Crysis has quite a few aftermarket parts and it looks very nice. It's a clean looking bike, although I'm not a fan of the green colorway. Some people are, some people love it. It's just not my color, but that's a personal preference. Honestly, you can pick whichever bike you want. The sprocket looks nice. Everything on this bike is very beautiful and well designed. So do I recommend this bike? Well, for $534, no. I think there are many other bikes with similar quality for a much lower price. Most of the bikes with similar quality are around $550 to $600. So when you look at the sale price, if you can get it for this sale price, you're getting a good quality bike for a good price. Getting a bike with full chromoly frame, forks, bars, hub guards, and some aftermarket components for right over $500 is very hard to do, and this sale price is crazy. Now keep in mind, even if you're a taller rider, you're over 6 foot, this bike it's going to have a weight limit of about 200 pounds. It's touchy because the only things that you would worry about breaking would be things like the chain, maybe bending the pedals, and that's really about it. And maybe upgrade the tires. But for the most part, this bike is good enough quality that the weight limit is set pretty high. It's set for riders who are going to really abuse this bike or have a ton of extra weight. If you guys weigh over like 250, you might want to consider getting a bike with aftermarket chromoly parts and not just full chromoly. The Crysis has full chromoly. It's a high quality bike, but not as good as the bike like the Envy or the Battleship or the Revolver. So for $514, I definitely recommend the Crysis, no matter if you're 5'6" to 5'9" getting the 21-inch option or you're over 6 foot getting the 21-inch option. This price is really good and you can't go wrong. And so that's the Crysis. Next, we're going to talk about the step up in quality, the WeThePeople Trust. Next on the list is the 2023 WeThePeople Trust. Now the Trust is a unique bike because it has different options, different sizes based on which version you pick. It's got a 20.75 inch option with matte raw and a black colorway with a freecoaster. And it has a 21-inch option that comes in a black colorway and a matte raw colorway with a cassette. And the geometries of the bike, aside from the top tube, are actually also different. So I'm going to talk about both of them at the same time. It might get a little bit confusing, so try to keep up. But basically, we're going to talk about the sizing of this bike, the geometry of the bike, the quality of the bike, and if it's worth full price or if it's worth sale price. Is this a good bike for you at full price or at sale price? I want to help you find the perfect bike. So let's talk about the Trust. So the cassette version of the Trust is $829 on sale for $580 right now. The freecoaster version of the Trust is $829 on sale for $580. That's a good deal, and generally freecoaster bikes are more expensive than cassette bikes. When we look at the weight, the cassette version weighs 26 pounds, 26.95 pounds. I said close to 27 pounds. The freecoaster version of the bike is going to weigh 27.74 pounds, closer to 28 pounds. So that freecoaster adds quite a bit of weight. Both bikes do come equipped with brakes. They come with the Claw Talon brake system. It's a U-brake, but everything's fully removable, so you can take off the brakes and have a clean brakeless look. And if we look at the weight, we'll notice that this weight is without brakes and with pegs. So if you add brakes onto the bike, if you put put the brakes on that are included, this bike's going to weigh a little bit more than the listed weight, and that's important for you to know. This is a pretty high-end bike, and everything is customizable and everything is upgradable. And like I said, with the color options, we've got a matte raw in a 21-inch top tube with a cassette. We've got a matte black with a 21-inch top tube in a cassette. And the cool thing here, you can't really see it, is that the tires are double-sided. So on the right side of the tires, they're red. On the left side of the tires, they're black. And that's kind of fun. And then in the freecoaster version, it's a 20.75-inch top tube. Again, black colorway with the red tires on the side. 4-piece bars on the freecoaster version, not on the cassette version. And then we've got the matte raw colorway, 20.75 with a freetoaster. Okay, those are the different options. Let's talk about the sizing of this bike and who it's good for. So the cassette version in 21-inch top tube is best for riders who are 6 foot and taller. If you're way over 6 foot, you might want to consider a 21.25 or 21.33. There are a few different options there, but the 21 for the most part is a good fit for riders who are taller than 6 foot. The 20.75-inch top tube is a good fit for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot. So if you're right at 6 foot, you're considering the Trust, you honestly could go with either one. If you want a 21, it's going to be a little bit more mellow and a little bit more flowy feeling. The 20.75 is going to be more responsive and more snappy. Ultimately, you get to pick the choice, you get to choose, but follow the size guide. That's my recommendation. It's going to make your life a lot easier if you follow the size guide. So let's get into the more in-depth geometry just a little bit, just a brief overview. The cassette version with the 21-inch top tube has a 13.2-inch chainstay, a 75.5 degree head tube angle, and a 9-inch standover height. This chainstay is a little bit longer than average, but nothing too crazy. The 75.5 degree head tube angle is a little bit more responsive, and you're going to notice that when you're popping into nose manuals. The 20.75 freecoaster version is going to have a 12.75-inch chainstay and a 75.5 degree head tube angle with a 9-inch standover height. Again, a responsive head tube angle and an even more responsive chainstay. Ultimately, the front wheel and the back wheel on the freecoaster version are going to be close together. You've got a short wheelbase, which makes the bike very responsive overall. So now you understand the sizing of this bike and the geometry of the bike. Let's take a quick look at the quality to see if this bike is even worth the price. The Trust comes with a full chromoly frame, full chromoly forks, and full chromoly WeThePeople Trust handlebars with a 9.25-inch rise. The handlebars on the cassette version are 2-piece handlebars, while the handlebars on the freecoaster version are cool looking 4-piece handlebars. Okay, that's important to note, but the quality is going to be the same. Full chromoly on the freecoaster, full chromoly frame on the freecoaster, full chromoly forks on the freecoaster, and full chromoly 4-piece handlebars. Both of them have eclat tripping double wall rims. These are high-end double wall rims, and you're gonna like how this bike handles and how it feels. Ultimately, because of this quality, the Trust doesn't really have a weight limit. If you weigh 200 pounds, 250 pounds, you're gonna be fine on this bike, and I wouldn't worry about stuff breaking. A few things that I like about the Trust is the fact that it comes with hub guards and some pegs. I also like this sprocket with the bash guard because this makes the bike even more street specific. The cranks are actually 48 spline cranks, although they're not super high quality 48 spline cranks. They're going to be a lot lighter and a lot stronger than the 8 spline cranks that you're going to find on cheaper bikes. But overall, that's important to point out, okay? The sprocket, the cranks have a boss on the right side and the left side, so converting this bike to left-hand drive or right-hand drive would be fairly easy to do. Overall, here are my honest thoughts. This is a high-end bike, and for $830, I still recommend it to people fairly often. I think it's unique to have a shorter chainstay with the freecoaster option with 4-piece bars, or a longer top tube and chainstay option with the cassette version, and so that gives the rider more ability to kind of fine-tune the bike. They're not making compromises. If they want a bike with a freecoaster, they're able to get that in the Trust. If they want a bike with a cassette, they're able to get that in the Trust. And I think options are very, very important, and the Trust gives the rider a lot of options. So even at the full price, I think this is a good bike, and I do recommend it on the recommendation from time to time. If you're looking at it for $580, this is a crazy good deal. Like, I almost want to buy one just to cruise around, because this is such a good price and you can't go wrong with it. Next on the list is the 2023 WeThePeople Revolver. The Revolver is a dirt-specific BMX bike that's only available in one color option and one top tube size. The Skipper Green colorway is not my thing, but it looks nice, and I think there are people who really love this colorway. It's not my personal favorite, but that's not to say it's a bad bike. Here are some things you need to know about the WeThePeople Revolver. The Revolver without brakes but with pegs weighs 26.6 pounds. So a pretty light bike considering that's including the weight with pegs. It's normally $1,239, but right now it's 30% off and you can grab this bike for $867, which is an insane price. Everything on the bike is pretty much aftermarket, but if for whatever reason you want to upgrade different parts and switch stuff out, you can do so. It's going to work out just fine. The bike comes shipped with brakes, but everything's removable so you don't have to put the brakes on. And if you decide not to ride the brakes, you can have a nice clean brakeless look like you see here in the picture. It also has holes drilled for gyro tabs so you can put a gyro on it if you wish. It's available in a 21-inch top tube in matte Skipper Green. Now the 21-inch top tube is going to be best for riders who are over 6 foot. And again, this bike is dirt specific. So if you're buying this bike with the idea of riding dirt, you might even want to get this bike if you're over 5'9", since being smaller and having a taller bike gives you extra stability and control. Dirt riders tend to want to size up on a top tube size. So 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot and above would be fine riding this bike on dirt, even though it's a 21-inch top tube. To explain why this bike is dirt specific, let's take a look at the other geometries. So we've got a 13.5-inch chainstay on center. We've got a 74.75 degree head tube angle, a 9.1-inch standover height, and a really low 11.5-inch bottom bracket height. Because of this 13.5-inch chainstay means the back wheel's pushed back farther from the front wheel. The 74.75 degree head tube angle means the front wheel is pushed out a little bit farther from the back wheel. This increases the wheelbase of the bike and gives you a very stable and controlled feeling ride. Okay, this bike's going to feel stable, feel nice at high speeds, which is really important. If you've ever ridden a very small bike on big dirt jumps, it feels like you're going to die because you're going so fast and the bike is just so twitchy. It's not good. It's like going down a big hill on a skateboard with little wheels. You get speed wobbles. It's scary. Okay, so having a bike like this where the top tube and everything is bigger, where it has bigger geometry, it's going to feel stable and comfortable riding the dirt jumps. But a bike that's designed for dirt jumps is no good if it's going to break as soon as you hit a jump. So let's look at the quality and see why this bike costs almost $1,300. This is an aftermarket WeThePeople Revolver frame. It's got full Senko Japanese chromoly and an Invest cast wishbone. You might be wondering what the Invest cast wishbone is, and I'll see if I can find a picture. Okay, right here. So this is the wishbone, this back part right here, and an Invest cast wishbone is a lot stronger and it gives you extra tire clearance because of the way that it's designed. So the cast wishbone here is going to give you a strength in the back end. It's got WeThePeople Storm forks, which are liquid heat-treated Senko Japanese tubing. These are full chromoly, really high-quality forks. It's got WeThePeople Revolver, liquid heat-treated full 4130 chromoly handlebars with a tall 9.25-inch rise. And then looking at the rims, we've got the WeThePeople Logic double wall rims. These are welded rims versus pinned. Most of the complete bikes that come with double wall rims are going to be pinned double wall rims, which means they're put together with pins instead of the weld. And the flash weld that puts these rims together is a lot more reliable. These rims are going to last a lot longer because of it. Pretty much everything on this bike is high-end aftermarket chromoly, and you're going to enjoy riding it if you like to ride dirt. This is a very high-quality bike, and it explains that $1,239 price tag. But is it worth that price? For riders who are looking for dirt-specific riding, who request a free bike recommendation, if they have the budget for it, I definitely recommend this bike. I know it's a lot of money, but ultimately you can't find a better dirt-specific bike. This is one of the few bikes that scores a 10 on the dirt score in the Doug's to Bob app, and it has a 28:9 gear ratio. This is a very unique gear ratio, which makes it a little bit harder to pedal, but gives you a higher top speed. And so even at full MSRP, I recommend this bike from time to time. Now, if you're a dirt specific rider and you just want a high-end bike and you want it on a crazy deal, just like all of the other bikes, 30% off. This price is absolutely insane. And if I would recommend it for $400 more, I would definitely recommend it now. So if you can find this bike on sale right now, there's only a few left in stock on Danscomp. This is a crazy price, crazy deal. You're going to love it. Now, the We the People Battleship is a street-specific BMX bike. This is high-end, full aftermarket chromoly. Everything on this bike's expensive, high-end. It's going to last a very long time. If you're looking for a street-specific bike, this might be the right bike for you. So let's talk about it. Let's explain the geometry, the quality, and at the end of this section, I'm going to tell you who this bike is for and help you understand if I recommend it at this full MSRP and at the sale price. Here's some things you need to know about the bike. Okay, this bike weighs 27.94 pounds without brakes and with the pegs that are included. This comes with 2 nylon pegs and 4 nylon hub guards. This bike is fully upgradable and customizable, but everything on it is like really high quality. So I wouldn't recommend going and just upgrading stuff right away because you're buying a super high-end bike. It comes equipped with U-brakes and everything is removable. So you can take the brakes off and have a nice clean brakeless look like you see here in the picture. It's important to note why this frame looks so funny, and this is called hydroform tubing. The hydroform tubing adds some extra strength to the bike. This ultimately just makes it a lot more reliable. The We the People Battleship comes in an abyss blue colorway with a 20.75 inch top tube and a gloss raw colorway with a 20.75 inch top tube. Both bikes look very nice and they're high quality. So the 20.75 inch top tube is best for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot. It's important to stick to that recommended size guide because getting a bike that's too small or too big for you is going to make riding quite a bit harder. Aside from that top tube size, we got to talk about some other geometry so you understand how this bike's going to handle. It's got a 13-inch chainstay, a 75.5 degree head tube angle, an 11.7 bottom bracket height, and a 9-inch standover height. This chainstay is 13 inches on center, which is technically average. The head tube angle is a little bit more responsive, meaning that this front wheel is going to become closer to the back wheel, and it's going to give this bike a shorter wheelbase, which makes spins easier, steering snappier, and nose manuals easier to get into. Another thing to notice is the 11.7 inch bottom bracket height, which is taller than average, and it's going to make it more responsive because your feet are higher up off the ground. It also keeps your bottom bracket from hitting when you're doing certain grinds like crooked grinds. So that's the geometry. Let's talk about the quality of this bike and see why it's priced so high. Well, if you look at the We the People Battleship aftermarket full chromoly frame, you'll understand why. This is like a $400 or $500 frame just on its own. It's got We the People Battleship heat treated full chromoly aftermarket forks. It's got E-Claw Strangler 4-piece heat treated full chromoly handlebars, and it's got the E-Claw Bondi flash welded double wall rims. Like I explained before, flash welding is a lot stronger than pinned, which you're going to find pinned double wall rims on most complete bikes. Getting flash welded double wall rims is something that doesn't happen unless you're spending over $1,000 on a complete BMX bike. This bike comes with 4 hub guards, 2 pegs. It comes with a lot of aftermarket parts, and it's going to last a very long time for any kind of rider. Ultimately, this bike does show up from time to time on the free bike recommendation because some people who are between 5'9" and 6 foot want a responsive street machine that's not going to break on them. And that's exactly what the We the People Battleship does. This is a crazy price at 30% off. I don't know how long this is going to last, but if you can grab this $1,200 bike for $850, that's just insane. Absolutely insane. You cannot find a bike this level of quality for under $1,000 anywhere, and at this price the value is just insane. Okay, so now let's talk about the We the People Envy, which is going to be the last one on the list, and this bike is going to blow your mind. The We the People Envy is normally $1,300. 30% off, it's just over $900. I can't believe this price, and you're going to see why in a little bit. If you bought all of the parts on the Envy separately and built them up into their own BMX bike, you'd be spending way over $1,500 to do this. Every single part on this bike can be purchased separately from We the People, E-Claw, Danscomp, whoever you want to buy your parts from. You can do that. And if you did, it would cost you over $1,500. So just buying the complete bike for $1,300 $1,300 saves you a good amount of money. Buying the complete bike for $900 saves you an insane amount of money. I can't wrap my head around this. So let's explain why the Envy is such a high quality bike and what it's going to feel like. This bike is very light. That's the first thing on the list, is that it weighs 24.38 pounds. Incredibly light bike. The second thing is that it's fully upgradable, fully customizable, but it's also fully aftermarket. If we scroll down and look at any of these parts, like we've got the Claw E440 rims, you can buy those aftermarket. They're going to cost you quite a bit of money to do so. If we look at the stem, the E-Claw Dune top load stem, fully aftermarket stem. So this bike is high-end aftermarket customizable. It does come shipped with brakes, but everything's removable, so you don't have to run the brakes. And if you choose not to, you don't have any brake hardware hanging around, making your bike look weird. The WeThePeople Envy is available in a 20.5-inch top tube in right-hand or left-hand drive and a 21-inch top tube in right-hand or left-hand drive. Being able to choose between right-hand or left-hand drive is a privilege that most complete bikes don't have. If you want to grind on the right side, typically you want to have left-hand drive and vice versa. It's pretty cool that you can choose. Now, both size options are only available in a chrome colorway. If you are between 5'6" and 5'9", you're going to want to choose the 20.5-inch Envy. If you're over 6 foot, you're going to want to choose the 21-inch Envy. The Envy is naturally a little bit more responsive than most complete bikes. It's got a 12.75-inch chainstay length, a 75.25 degree head tube angle, and a lower 8.75-inch standover height. The 75.25 degree head tube angle is going to make this front wheel a little bit closer to the back wheel, and so will the 12.75-inch chainstay. It just pulls that wheelbase together and gives the bike a very responsive feeling. If we look at the quality of the bike, you'll see why it's normally $1,300. The WeThePeople Envy frame is a full chromoly frame with hydroformed gussets, and it's even got laser cut extra thick 6mm dropouts. This is absolutely insane. The forks are Storm XLT forks with post-liquid heat-treated processing and butted Senko tubing. They've got a 24mm offset. The bars are WeThePeople Envy XLT bars that also have the post-liquid heat-treated treatment to them, and then they're full chromoly Senko Japanese tubing. They've got the E440 flash-welded double-wall rims and a boatload of aftermarket parts equipped with this bike. Just, if you look at a $500 complete bike, the full chromoly frame is a full chromoly frame. That's it. You don't get heat treated, you don't get butted tubing, you don't get a lot of these extra things. And to be honest, these extra features that are on this bike change the game. If you're a heavier rider or you're really into it, you're doing some crazy tricks, you need this kind of quality because it's going to last. And not only is it going to last, the bike's going to feel more rigid and it's going to flow so much better because everything's built well. So I don't give this bike a weight limit. You can ride this bike at any weight, and that's important to know because some bikes, $500-$600 bikes, aren't recommended for people over 200 pounds. So if you are one of those heavier guys like me, you want a bike like this with pro level quality that's not going to break on you while you're trying to progress and while you're riding. Overall, the Envy is recommended sometimes on the free bike recommendation. I'll recommend it for people who want a really high-end bike, they want pro level quality, and they just want a bike that's not going to give them any headaches. And I recommend it for $1,300. So the fact that it's on sale for $909, I absolutely recommend it. Like if I would recommend it for $13, I definitely recommend it for $500 cheaper. Like if I would recommend it for $13, I'd recommend it to almost anybody for $500 cheaper. You're not going to find a bike with this level of quality for this price. For example, the Kink Williams is $999. I think they dropped the price down to $900 now. The Williams doesn't have an aftermarket frame. It has aftermarket bars, forks, double wall rims that are pinned, not flash welded. And so like for $100 less, you can get the Envy right now and get like 5 times the quality. Absolutely insane. And I'd recommend this bike. If you have any questions about this bike, let me know in the comments and I will answer every single comment there. If you want me to find 3 bikes that are perfect for you because you're tired of looking and it's a lot of work, request a free bike recommendation. The link for that is in the description.